Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and to today's video where I'm going to show you a few quick tips and techniques on how to draw stripes in fur. So on my channel I've previously drawn a few tigers, so you can check those out. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check those out, but this is focusing on adding stripes in fur, which doesn't necessarily pertain to like tigers. It can be for tabbies or any kind of cats or any kind of animal that has stripes, so a zebra, that kind of thing. So we're going to look at a few short tips and techniques on how to do this. So the very first thing that I like to add in is a base layer. This is something you always hear me going on about, and you always want to go from light to dark when you're working with coloured pencils, especially if you're working on a cotton paper. If you're working on something like a pastel matte paper, then you can work in a slightly different direction or different way, because you can actually add lighter areas on top of darker areas quite easily. But if you're working on a Fabriano paper like I am here, then I like to always work from light to dark because it's a lot easier to go darker than it is to go lighter. So the first thing that I've done is use an ivory pencil here to add in the base of the lighter areas of fur. So the reference that I'm actually using is of a little snippet of a tiger, and it's obviously got orange fur and then the dark stripes. So for the orange areas of the fur, I've actually gone in and added a base of ivory, and then I'm going to, as you can see, I'm adding in the base layer for the actual stripes, and I'm actually going in with a light pressure on a warm grey 4 pencil. Then you have everything mapped out. You've got your base for your orange fur and then a base for your darker stripes. And when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're always working in the direction of the fur. So make sure you take note of your reference photo, make sure that you're adding in these base layers in the direction, and these base layers are going to form the basis of where you're going to add the fur lines and the direction for further layers. So you're kind of laying in some groundwork for your future layers. So once those base layers are in and you're happy with the fur direction and everything like that, then you can start to add in some more tones and colours. So for the orange fur, I'm going straight in with some burnt ochre, and again I'm using a really light pressure for this, and I'm following that fur direction, and I'm making sure that I'm just going into those more orange or lighter toned areas of fur first. So with this particular colour, I've actually gone in and added a very soft layer using a light pressure over the top of the ivory. And then I'm going in with a little bit of a harder pressure on the pencil and adding in some fur lines. So when you start to get towards your mid-tones of your colours, depending on what colour fur or whatever you're working on, will depend on what colours and which kind of layering sequence you need. So the burnt ochre that I'm using, and I'm actually using some sanguine as well, are more kind of my mid-tone colours. So with your mid-tones, you want to start to add in some fur lines to really get and build that texture. So I've just added in some sanguine, a little bit of burnt sienna as well on my particular tiger patch here, and I'm just adding in the fur lines, making sure they're quite nice and short, and working in the fur direction as well. So I like to build in the orange fur and everything around the stripes and then add in the stripes, because it's a lot easier to do it this way. And as you can see here, I'm kind of explaining what you need to do for adding in the darker areas of the stripes. So I've kind of added in an example. You can see there's a line down the middle, and then I've got fur lines either side. So on your particular fur stripe that you are working on, you want to kind of divide it in half, because you want to work in one half and then the other. So often with your stripes, you'll find that you have an area of darker fur that is overlapping your lighter fur, and the lighter fur that is overlapping your darker fur. So down the middle of the stripe, you want to work from the left to the right when your dark fur is overlapping your lighter fur, and then when you have your lighter fur overlapping your dark, depending on your fur direction, you want to work in the opposite way. So in my particular example here, my stripes are obviously going from left to right. So down the middle of my stripes, I've worked from left to right for adding in the dark fur over the top of the lighter fur, and then right to left for adding in the lighter fur going over the top of the darker fur. And this just helps to give that kind of really natural overlay. Whereas if you was to just add in your fur strokes from the left to the right for your stripes, then you'd get these really harsh, really pointed lines right at the beginning of the stripe, and it wouldn't blend in with the patch of fur before it, if that makes sense. So by working both in the direction of the fur and in the opposite direction of the fur, you're making sure that you get a really nice natural overlay, and you've got that lighter fur overlapping that dark fur, rather than it just completely stopping at the dark fur, and then you've got a nice kind of gentle overlay from the dark to the light. So that's the most simple method I can think of to explain exactly how to add in stripes and how to get that really natural looking overlay and that kind of variation between the two furs. So I like to go in and add all of the orange tones and all of the orange kind of texture first, obviously adding in a base for the dark stripes so you don't lose their placement once you've gone over the graphite. And then when it comes to the darker stripes in the fur, work in both the direction of the fur and in the opposite direction of the fur. And it just helps it look a lot more natural. You can see on that very first section that I've actually completed these further sections to the right, I'm just kind of blocking in really kind of roughly, and then I'll kind of finish them off a bit, but you can see exactly how effective it is, and you get that lighter fur overlapping that darker fur, and then you get that darker fur going into the orange fur as well, and it just looks really, really nice. It's really satisfying to achieve that as well. So just a quick tip to darken up your dark stripes if you're struggling with creating a nice dark tone. Go in with something like a walnut brown or a Van Dyke brown, and instead of going in with dark sepia or straight black, build in some dark indigo over the top, because it builds a really nice deep looking dark tone. It just looks a lot more natural and a lot nicer than going in with a straight flat dark sepia or a black tone. And then you can always add dark sepia or black over the top, but you'll just add a lot more depth to your darker areas, and it really does make a whole world of difference. You can even add in a little bit of purple in there as well. That also adds in a lot of depth. But yeah, just make sure you don't go in with a flat colour and build in some other colours so that you can get a little bit more character to the fur. But that's pretty much it for this short tutorial. I really hope that this tip has helped you if you're trying to create stripes in fur, not necessarily, as I say, just for tigers, but for other things like zebras and tabby cats and all of that kind of thing as well. If you want to follow along with more fur tutorials in real time and in a lot more depth, then hop on to my Patreon on my website. I'll leave the link in the description below for you guys. If you want to check that out, please feel free to do so. There's a whole bunch of content over there. But yeah, other than that, I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!